right, so again, welcome to year 2021. This is Rashonda Thornton, the host of the Dietitian Against Diets podcast show. Before I start talking about my guest today, I wanted just to give a quick shout out to one of my podcast partners, Janie's Mill. Now, Janie's Mill, they're one of Illinois' respected organic farms and mill where they are committed to wholesome and the best performing flours and grains. Now, I'm saying that because I've been there. I had the pleasure of visiting their farm a few months ago, and I've seen firsthand at their milling process, the rare grains that they have, and the heart that's behind every bag of flour that's delivered, whether it be local grocery stores, local bakeries, or to your own home. So I want you to take a thought and think about using their services and learn about what they are all about. Check out their stories and the rare grains that they offer by going to the website at www.janiesfarm.com. So one of the things that I typically do before every podcast show and every podcast guest, I throw a little bit of nutrition thought inside the process because I know, we can, I have a platform called the Dietitian Against Diets, but, I always say it's about the diet, going against the diet mentality. But I got a question for you. Have you recognized, for yourself how, when you think about your life, we can go years of like trying these new diets, having these endeavors to lose a certain amount of weight, and it's kind of like we go back and forth. But have you recognized how like this whole dieting process has like interfered in your life? How many times have you, been through this struggle going back and forth, and how has it impeded on like who you are as a person, the confidence that you have and the confidence that you have to do things that you really, really endeavor to do? By noticing that like this whole dieting thing that we do, how it's interfered with our lives, we begin to see that it's really not benefiting or serving us in any way. If anything, dieting is usually causing a whole lot of heartbreak, emotional baggage, and unwanted physical symptoms. So a lot of times when the first knee-jerk response, especially given the beginning of the year with your New Year resolutions, before you start thinking, for this year 2021, I'm going to, promise myself that I'm going to adhere or follow this particular plan or system or this diet plan. And, you got to ask yourself, in the past, how has that worked for you? And how has, if you really want to think about how has it impeded on like who you are and like you really growing into the person that you want to be? And sometimes you may not even recognize it because I feel like a lot of times when you're used to, tangoing with these different diets and trying to do different things, you kind of become desensitized to the feeling of failure that you find with them. And for some reason, when you go to the next one, you try the next one, this inkling of a level of hope is always there, but you find yourself still in that space of feeling like you just couldn't get it done this time. And over time, it gets easier and easier to swallow. So you find yourself living in a desensitized state where you're not even recognizing that your struggles that you're having, it's not even about the food. It's like underlying reason as to why you find yourself in these places. It has really begun to impede on your life. And you're carrying this emotional baggage, and you don't recognize how much weight is really carrying on your shoulders. Also, some people don't realize when you are, when you're this whole idea of like this dieting process interfering with your life, you find yourself going the numb route. And the numb route can mean so many different things. For some people, it's numbing yourself and just getting engulfed into, social media or technology and not really addressing like really who you are and what's going on in your life. Or it could be, numbing yourself by surrounding yourself with distractions. Are we using food as a way to numb ourselves? Are we using other activities that's not really self-serving to numb ourselves from the reality of really addressing like why do we always feel that this whole idea of this diet, this hope of diet is going to give us that success, but it always takes us backwards. How is it truly interfering in your life, in your psyche, and what steps are you taking to like overcome that? Or are you finding yourself just going back to square one and just trying to ignore it, kicking under the rug, and just hoping that it'll disappear? Well, unfortunately, it doesn't interfere. And then, I asked about how is it interfering in your life? How is it also interfering in other areas of your life? I work with people every day, all day, on a consulting level. And I find that a lot of times when people are working so hard in this whole endeavor to, lose weight, they lose sight of like who they are. They just put blinders on and just push and persevere, but not recognizing, who they really are as far as, their own value, their own self-worth. They find that this also interferes in other areas of their life. Whether they're a mother, they're a father, they're a business owner, or they work for a company, they find that they carry an emotional baggage, because of the negative self-talk, maybe perhaps with the results of dieting all the time. Now they have limited hope on them pursuing other areas in their life. Or they may have negative self-talk, not just in themselves, but it spills over to negative self-talk to those loved ones. And it just creates a big ball of just unhappiness. So just recognize, how has dieting interfered in your life, and decide what are going to be yourself to stop that interference. Well, I'll tell you the thing for me, the reason why, again, diets don't work, because it does create that negative energy. And so the only approach I find working with my clients and for my own life is learning how to transform all that into how you're reflecting love for yourself, how you're reflecting self-care for yourself. And it has nothing to do with dieting. It's more so about how are you bringing in those right foods that best serves you. And to me, that's what creates that positive energy, because you're doing something that is good for you. You feel good about it. And it takes away that interference, because now you're starting to not see, but first feel the benefits of healthy eating, and then you'll see the changes as you go. So I want to continue to encourage you as you're going through these different ups and downs when it comes to your healthy eating. It is very possible, but before you go there, recognize first how dieting, that approach that you've been taking, how it has interfered in your life and when you're ready to make a change for the good. Again, Rashonda Thornton, the Dietitian Against Diets. I hope that this is something that resonates to you. It's always a nugget in every conversation that I have. And again, how can you find a pathway for you and for your better health? So stay tuned for my next guest. All right, so we're still in the beginning of year 2021. So I am so excited to roll out my new line of guests. And for today, I want to introduce you to my guest, Leila Hughes-Deeds. She is a dietitian for the Toronto Blue Jays, if you guys are baseball players. And she also holds a hat working with Tandem Nutrition. I had the gentleman, Gerald Sir, he's the owner of Tandem Nutrition. We had him on a couple of months ago. But she's one of the dietitians that works with him. And with Tandem Nutrition, she specializes in women fat loss. Along with that, she specializes in working with women within the clinical setting of certain conditions such as hypothyroidism, PCOS. For those who don't know what that means, is polycystic ovary syndrome, which is a condition that affects women's hormones. So being a dietitian, that's one of myself, I want to say welcome to the show today.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I'm super excited.
Yes, so am I. I always get giddy when I get dietitians on the platform, because I know when we get together, we preach to the choir, but we can just understand each other's energy, and we really just kind of can bounce off of each other. And
Right.
I as a dietitian do a lot of different things. So I will always tell dietitians, you can have more than one hat in this field called nutrition. And so for you, you hold two specifically different hats. I know you probably hold more in the field of dietetics, and you work with athletes on professional level all the way to just everyday women. Now, my question to you is now for you to specialize in both of those areas or find your career in those two different areas, what is the common thread that you see between those two fields as how you got to be where you're part of both of them?
Yeah, so I think one common denominator in that is I work with people who are motivated to better themselves through nutrition. Those women who I work with for fat loss, they're coming to us because these goals are super important to them. And then same thing with those professional athletes. I mean, it's at that level, your nutrition can be a really big game changer for you. And so taking it to the next level, again, highly motivated people. And so I think that's one thing that kind of ties them together.
Yeah. And you know what? That's very true. There's a drive. Maybe two different types of drive, but these individuals are ones that has an incentive to just be better. And so using that as allowing nutrition to be a part of that route, I can definitely see how those two things are very similar. And, I think it's really cool that you're able to, work at the level of high performance when it comes to professional athletes, all the way down to understanding the everyday person. And, I think when it comes to dietetics, you have to be able to have the spectrum of knowledge and the way that you communicate to people. Now, I'm assuming that, working with Tandem Nutrition, you found your one of your passions within that realm, working with those women, because you get opportunity to work with them a lot more often. Is that correct?
Yeah, absolutely. It's something that I've been doing a bit longer, and I love it. Just, woman to woman, being able to help, counsel, educate. It's just a big passion of mine.
Yes, yeah. And I mean, as I always say, we can't get enough work, Not necessarily,
Mhm.
we definitely have a big we have a big role to fill when it comes to nutrition and health, but I really like when I see other dietitians that really are kind of going beneath the layers, besides, yes, we know how to apply nutrition meal plans, we know how to apply education, we can help you in all those areas, but something I read about in your bio, there are a lot of common threads that you and I have when it comes to there's some underlying conditions as to why people have a hard time making choice when it comes to their health and their drive to just have a healthier body. So I want to really kind of dig into that topic. I call it being uncomfortable in your own skin. And the reason why I said that is I had a client once. She made that comment, and it just stuck with me forever. And when she said it really resonated to where I really feel like a lot of people are just sometimes uncomfortable in their own skin. So people compare themselves, whether it's their old high school pictures 10 years ago, or whether it's some person or image of a person's physique or body, they feel like that's the person who has to look you know now what
Mhm.
do you think is the psychology behind why people strive for an idea of perfection versus just being their best self? And also with that, what do you recognize the common thread regarding the issue of that?
Yeah, I think we just live in a day and age where it's so easy to compare, and you're constantly, whether it's you're in line at the grocery store and you see magazines, you're watching TV, you hear your girlfriends talking, it's just constantly comparing, or like, oh, did you see this person? They look like this, they tried that, they're doing this. And so I think it's just kind of ingrained in our brains, and so we don't even realize it, but subconsciously, like year after year, about it from the time you're a child or maybe a teenager to just your adult life, it's just been what you've been doing, and then you kind of get to a point where like I don't know what to do anymore. And I find that a lot of women specifically, they have like this idea that they don't even know what they're comparing themselves to at that point. And if they get to their goal, it's never quite enough. It's always, I just want to lose 5 more pounds, or I want to just do a little bit more, now that I got there. And so it's definitely a big psychological thing.
Mm-hmm.
So I think just kind of retraining your mind and like taking those steps and taking a step back and what's really important to you, like where you're at right now, like what's realistic, setting those targets and kind of just changing your mindset. And I think one thing, just working with a dietitian in general, like
Uh-huh.
we have the outside perspective, so we can kind of help them see what they're doing in that sense. Because you might not even realize it. As
Mm-hmm.
I said, you've been doing this from the time you were young. By the time you're an adult, it's like, oh, I didn't even know I am comparing myself. Like, why am I doing that?
That is so true. And I think, like you said, Layla, we don't it's a sub we don't people don't even realize that they're doing it. Whether, it's something as small as, a lady walked out with a nice dress on and they may catch, they may not even think about it, but they probably admire the lady and wouldn't mind, their body looking like that.
Hmm.
But the thing is so subtle to where you don't really recognize that you are doing that. But your
Yeah.
actions are showing it. And I think it adds on to the amount of pressure that women feel. I work with young girls, preteen girls, and we talk about body image and empowerment, and it starts at that age because those are the ages where you're
Hmm.
impressionable. Back then we had magazines and, what else did we have? We had videos we used to watch, music videos, right? They don't have that right
Yeah.
now, but they do have things that are just as quickly as they can scroll through and look at anything on social media. So like
Hmm.
that's a new influence. And I think kind of like what you're saying, if you start off as a young child, if you're already heavily influenced by the industry just because you don't know any better, it's all the thing that you're absorbing, it is going to transform into a woman that finds those same thought processes going into their lives.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And so when we think about the idea of, you mentioned something in your bio about trying to let go or trying to fit into this cookie cutter box. And again, it's one of
Yeah.
those things where we feel like we'll find happiness. We just, like I say, lose that extra 5 pounds and lose those 10 pounds. It's always want more. I want more. It's like you never
Hmm.
just be able to just be in the moment and just recognize what you have and just kind of be your best at it. How has that been like a struggle, for what you do and how for what you do and how you teach people to kind of break away from that mentality about having this cookie cutter idea of what you think you should look like or be like?
Yeah, I think talking to people, just taking in where they're at in life. If you have this goal of trying to be your high school or college body weight, like, is that really what you want? Or is that just like a nice idea? Like, if you're a mother of multiple children and having consistent family time is what's most important to you, just like kind of assessing where you're at and setting those goals that are going to best, they're going to be healthiest for you and you're going to be happiest with them. Because sure, you might be able to lose that extra 5 pounds and keep going how you want, but it's like, there's more to life than just that. So building those habits and just those habits to maintain where you're at, like get to a good, healthy place. Like, what does healthy look like to you? What's going to be
Mm-hmm.
maintainable? So you're not constantly in that yo-yo flux too. I find like if you're trying to constantly fit in a box, you're never going to get fully in it. So you're always up and down, up and down. And no one wants that. We all know what it is. And you hate it. And so again, just really setting goals that are best for you and figuring out what you want, I find is a great place to start.
So when you're working with your ladies working with Tandem Nutrition, is that like
Mhm.
just kind of the one of the main goals you try to help your women clients recognize and realize before even making any steps towards applying nutrition or the healthy foods, like trying to wrap their head around like some of these foundational concepts of like, let's first of all let our goal be is to find a way to be our best selves versus here's an ideal number or body fat percent that we want to kind of conform to. We don't even know what we're going to look like at that
Yeah.
stage. So is
Yeah.
that something that, like, what are some of the things that you work with your women? Because, fat loss is really, it's a big deal. And as a dietitian, I'm sure,
Yeah.
like, not compromising nutrition, how are you guiding your female clients through that?
Yeah. So I mean, when clients come and work with us, they have their goal in mind. And one thing throughout the process of working together is just kind of helping them make that goal fit in their life. And then along the way, a lot of times like that light bulb will switch if they realize it. But just, going out to eat. You're gonna go out to eat. You're gonna have girls' nights. It's something that's you're just gonna have for the rest of your life. You're gonna go through holidays. So I guess teaching them the habits, different maybe like tips and tricks that they can do to be successful during these times, but to still enjoy those times, because that's what's going to, again, make that sustainability aspect
Mm-hmm.
happen. So if they can kind of find that balance, and a lot of times it starts to click on their own without ever having to say like, really.
Yes, yes. And it's so good that you found that you say that, because I always tell people like you can't force yourself to change. It has to be like on a natural, organic change. And there's no time. There's no
Hmm.
time frame. There's no clock ticking. And so we just, like you say, don't try to. You want to find a way to embed nutrition into your life, and everyone's life is different. So how are you? And there will
Yeah.
be life, right? There are going to be great times when you're celebrating, going on vacations and anniversaries, and there will be times when unexpected things happen, like this pandemic, for example, or someone's passed away where
Absolutely.
you're sad, and like that's called life. And then when it comes to nutrition always seems like the first thing to kind of fall apart as soon as life happens. And if someone
Hmm.
doesn't find a way to navigate through life in learning strategy and learning tools and skills when those things happen, I feel like that's kind of what gets people to where they always are kind of falling backwards and resetting and restarting because they forgot to incorporate
Hmm.
life into this formula.
Absolutely. And I love how you brought up just, when you go through life, you have those celebrations, you have, hard times. And I think one thing that's really key with working with my women clients specifically is just, I feel like, I don't know if it's more just a woman thing in general, or I just work with a lot of females, so that's why I'm biased, but we constantly like emotional eat or stress eat. And so I think working with people and like going through life with them and kind of point that out and be like, hey, what else can we do to replace this? Like, it's okay to go through this period where you're mourning, you're stressed, you're emotional, but what do we need to do that's not food related and tied to it? Because a lot of times too, I feel like we're building bad habits, or then you get a negative relationship with the food. And that can just lead to a ton of other issues that we're not going
Mm-hmm.
to right now. But again, just like pointing that out, being there to support them, showing them that there's other ideas, suggestions, things we can do to kind of help us go through life, but also stay on track towards our goals.
Yes, and like you're saying, like with all of that, no one knows. This is on the job training. There is no like, well, we all know if then that type of scenario. But like, it's
Hmm.
okay to make a mistake. Like, it's not meant that you're going to check every box every day. It's not meant that you're going to know exactly what to do when you get sidetracked. Like, and I think, from what you're saying, like working with, especially women clients, we as women always have this idea that in order to be good, we have to be perfect, or this whole idea of perfection. And I tell people, you want to be the opposite of perfection. That is just progress. Like it's about progression and changing and learning as you go. And having some grace for yourself, because we're so hard on ourselves.
Yes.
You know?
Absolutely. No, absolutely. I love just telling people when they, if I get an email check-in and they're like, I fell off, everything, like it's all breaking loose, everything's falling apart, all my hard work, just reminding them like, hey, that's good. You're human. Like I'm human. I'll mess up. No one's ever going to be perfect. You're never going to stick with it every single day. Like, and that is okay. That just means, it's a part of the journey. And just, again,
Yes.
changing that mind frame from going to we have to be perfect to just like, hey, that I'm normal. Everyone does this. Every single person that you might compare yourself to, you want to be like, anyone, everyone, no one's perfect.
Yeah. And I like what you're saying is real. Like these are real time things that your clients deal with. These women, I'm sure on a regular basis, that don't have anyone to go to and talk to, they deal with it. And I always feel like if they had a great day, something, went left, then the whole day is just a wash. And for me, I always hear that. And I'm like, this is where I tell people, let's just focus on being a good 85%er. Just 85% of your day, every day, make better choices, and that way it gives that wiggle room to where you don't have to live up to this 100% expectation. You can have some sort of balance, but guess what? The 85 is like a B plus. So if you can multiply B plus out 3 months, 3 years, that's a lot more change and feel like you have to be on this narrow, rigid like guideline to be healthier, to be happy, to reach your goals,
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. So, one of the things that was unique about you, and I myself get a lot of these questions working with female clients, especially, is the hormonal piece, when it comes to women. And as we're changing, as we're gracefully aging, our body's physiologically changing. And maybe in some ways that we don't want to. But one of the biggest things that is inevitable as far as women is that we're going to go through some hormonal changes. So like say you specialize in hormones and along with the weight loss for women. So what are some common conditions that you've seen when it comes to like weight gain and hormonal changes? Like, I guess my way of saying it, women, a lot of women clients I get specifically, they feel like a lot of the weight gain or the ability not to lose fat weight has a lot to do with their hormonal changes. How can you kind of like broadly speak upon that to where people have can wrap their heads around like what they're supposed to expect when as they're aging as far as women?
Yeah. So I guess just some tough love for these clients and these women in general. Yes, our hormones are going to change. Things may seem harder, but a lot of times as we age, and yes, our hormones, our bodies are changing, we also we're doing less. You might not be walking as much, you might not be exercising as much, you're busy. Again, we keep bringing up life. Like life keeps happening. It's easy to make those excuses. And so a lot of times women feel like they can't lose weight or can't get to where they want to be because of their age or because you're postmenopausal or you have hypothyroidism. That's really not the case. A lot of times it's just we kind of have to check where we're at, reassess. Maybe the calories that you're trying to eat right now, that's what you were doing when you were 25. Like that might not work anymore because again, we always have to make sure that our intake is matching where we're at currently and taking into account, your current body weight, your lean muscle mass, your age. Those are all going to be factors that are going to impact that. But also just knowing that once you have those targets, you gotta put in the work, and it's
true.
not, just changing your mindset to know like it's not impossible for you. And I think a lot of times it's just little tough love. And then, if you do have a like hypothyroidism or something like that, making sure that you're getting your hormones checked and medications are up to date, like every 6 months, and making sure if that's piece is in line and, you're working well with your doctor and compliant to your medication, then again, it really shouldn't be a big issue.
Yeah. And, to a certain extent, like I agree with that. I had another dietitian along here about a year ago, and one thing he said was that your nutrition changes with your body. Like you're a different body than you was 10 years ago, than you was 20 years ago. So when you're working with your nutrition, what you're eating, you got to consider like you're a different person. And so even for women, like you're a different person because, like I say, you're not 25 or you're not 35. So what's going on with your nutrition and what you're having and regarding your age dynamic right now, and what else are you doing along with it or not doing with that? And sometimes it is I feel it can be a crutch, or sometimes women don't really, like say, don't connect, like their foods have a lot to do with the ability of not to lose weight at the rate that they want. And also they're comparing themselves again to when they had a higher metabolism. Now, I feel like, your body, you cannot make your body lose weight faster than it's supposed to. But you can at least build your environment to where it can do it efficiently, just, with nutrition. So, like you say, assess what they're like, take a moment, just kind of take some insight on really what's going on when it comes to your plate, your environment, your exercise activity, and reevaluate and use that as maybe that's the part of why it's happening and not just one entity. And there was another thing I was going to say about that. And if it is a hormonal issue, is there some hormonal conditions that are happening, then how can you put that into the equation of this is a part of your life, and work around and work with it as much as you can. It's not like it shouldn't to defeat a person. It just kind of gives them more information. If their hormone levels or if they are diagnosed with hypothyroidism and they're taking a medication or things like that, like that's just a part of the factor of your life right now. And so what we can do is work with it. It's not going to be what makes you, not succeed. You just have to include that into what you're doing now. Would you agree? Or how do you work with clients with that?
Yeah, just educating them on that piece, and a lot of times just reassuring them that just because you might have this condition or this is what your plate looks like right now, like it's still possible for you. Like our approach, again, it might look different than it did a few years ago, or maybe a few years in the future it might look different, but just knowing where you're at right now and knowing that like you're unstoppable. Like if you put your mind to it, and we're taking everything into account, like there's no reason it can't be you too.
And I'm smiling so much when you say that, because like I was saying, like genetics play a huge role in each individual, our differences, but within your genetic makeup, I really feel like, you may have to work a little bit harder than someone else, but that's okay. Like these are the tools you're giving. This is what you're giving. So you have to, work with what you have and be your best, and not compare yourself to the person to your left or to your right. And
Absolutely.
And like I say, if they helping people understand like you can do it, let's work together and figure out what's going to work for you. I think that gives people a little bit more peace of mind. I'm sure that's what you experience when you work with your clients. Like you're teaming up with them to help them through this dilemma that they're facing.
Yeah, absolutely. And I like how you touch on the comparison piece there too, as well, because I think one thing that's important, and it's tough when we do compare ourselves to other people, or like, oh, this person has this same condition, but they're doing this. Why can't I do that? It's like you never know what the full picture looks like for anybody else as well. And so you don't really know what they're doing, what might all be on their plate. And so, again, just another reason to not compare yourself to others. Always compare yourself to just where you're at, like where you were, where you are, where you're trying to be. I think that's always the best way to go about it, especially like if you are hard on yourself about different things or where you're at in life with hormones, anything like that. Just again, having that grace.
Yeah, having it grace. Yes. So I'm going to ask you a question when it comes to just the techniques that you use with your clients. So what have you found as far as the weight loss techniques that when you work with your clients that have been able to create more sustainable changes for those people?
So a lot of times we have them track their macros. We focus on a protein-focused calorie deficit. And then having targets like a step goal, we find that to be super beneficial, doing different cardio goals.
Okay.
But I really like step goals. People sleep on step goals a little bit, because that non-exercise activity where you're just kind of walking around, it really adds up. And I find like a lot of times that makes a bigger difference than people might even realize. And so I would say that could be a great place to start. But a lot of times just tracking what you're having. We never tell people that there's a food that's off limits. It's all, again, kind of making it fit your macros, doing it in a good portion way, and still
Mm-hmm.
prioritizing that protein. Your overall consistency, though, we know that's what is most important for anything, any goal you have, that is that consistency. So same thing when it comes to your specific nutrition or fitness goals. Whatever you're going to be consistent with is going to be what happens.
Yeah, and that's it. I mean, what's key to any change is just consistency. And so, not
Yep.
feeling like you have to be rushed, not feeling like everything has to be flawless every day. You're building and you're learning and changing and growing. That takes time to do so. And again, you have to, and the only way you can change naturally is putting in the work, learning how to be consistent, understanding that you don't have to be perfect. Decide to make what are the healthier choices that you feel is best for your body. And that's one thing when I work with clients, and Leila, you can probably, relate, or agree. I'm really big on helping people to just give their body the best when it comes to the nutrients, and when I say give your body the best, it just, to me, in other words, connect to what you're eating, like connect to the foods that you're engaging with. Instead of let me just eat this because this is what I'm told to do. Because when people do that, they totally disconnect themselves to what's really happening or what's the reason behind why they're happening. And because they don't appreciate, what they're connecting to. So a lot of times, along with that consistency, it's like when you just learn consistency, you start just being inside like the bubble of like being a part of what you're eating, appreciating what you're putting in your body. And then to me, like that's how like naturally it evolves into I'm choosing to have the salad because this is what I want to have, not because this is what I need to have to lose the weight. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. I really liked how you said that. I haven't necessarily like ever thought of it like that, but I think that's a great way to lead to that intuitive eating and that
Mm-hmm.
long-term sustainability for sure. And just being present, talking about like that mindfulness during meals and like why you're doing what you're doing is definitely key.
Yeah, yeah. And it's again, having these type of conversations is helpful because everyone has like a different approach, to like helping people to just think a little bit differently about their health. Even like say we're on here, we're both dietitians, but we both have similar approaches, but still different approaches. And
Yeah.
that just allows for these kind of conversations to, something's going to resonate to the listeners as someone that's going through some of these struggles. So it's good to have these natural conversations around just the mindfulness and intuitive eating because it's a big deal. To me, it's the foundation of change when it comes to, long sustainable change with nutrition. Yeah.
Oh,
So
absolutely.
I am getting ready I have my 5 loaded questions. And they're
Okay.
gonna be it's not gonna be, I'm not it's not gonna be anything trivial, but these are questions that I'm sure women just these are like just questions I'm sure women as we age, they're gonna start asking. And so for those listeners on here, I want to just provide them from some, firsthand insight from a dietitian that specializes in these areas. So what would you say would be some foods that are helpful for women that, let's say, their hormonal levels are compromised, whether it's decreased or, they've had some removing of certain parts of their bodies that has pretty much wiped out their hormones? Are there foods that can help increase their hormones naturally?
Um, for this, I would say no. I would say as you learn your body and continue to like try different foods, you naturally are going to find foods that might cause you more like inflammation, might cause you to bloat. And I find that to be different for a lot of women. Sometimes there are some common ones, but a lot of times it's pretty unique. So if you notice that, or if you notice your body's responding poorly, trying to kind of pick out foods or maybe eliminate something for a week or so, see how you feel, and then just playing with that. I find that can be beneficial. I wouldn't say there's a food specifically, though, that is going to increase a hormone or anything like that.
No, nope. Food heals, and when it comes to healing, I mean over time. The more as you're bringing in more
Hmm.
nutrients, your body naturally adheres to those. Utilize those nutrients and change in the way they're supposed to. So it's not like a medication. Like you take this medication and all of a sudden it answers it.
It's giving
Medication,
you this
yeah,
hormone.
it doesn't work like that. That's. I'm glad you answered that way because there's not ever one golden food that's supposed to suffice
Hmm.
everyone's needs. It's a variety of all of them, and in a consistency of eating them all, and then your body just naturally,
Hmm.
conforms to the nutrients that you give it. Okay, so speaking of nutrients, what are some vital nutrients that women as they're aging that they may need to be aware of just to make sure they're keeping their stores filled?
I always recommend to people I say eat the rainbow. So getting in all of your colors. So maybe being intentional when you go to the grocery on this week, you're getting a red and a green. The next week, you're going to get something that's yellow and orange. But just making sure, because I mean, your macronutrients, your protein, carbs, and fat, we're getting those in. And then your micronutrients, you're getting those from your colors, those fruits, those vegetables. So making sure that you're just incorporating those consistently and not leaving one out. And again, I do say fruits and vegetables because that color is key. So if you hate like green vegetables, that is okay. Like let's get a green fruit in and still kind of work on those nutrients from there.
Yes, well put, well put. In other words, clean, natural foods. I always say
Real food.
foods that you can grow, just variety, diversify it. Don't get stuck on just one particular food. To me, a power food is all of them, a combination of them all, not just one. So, yes, the variety of the rainbow. Okay, so I have a question for you regarding just women and weight loss. So, how would you explain to a person who's created this aggressive goal to lose weight really quickly? What would be the first things you say to the person to kind of help them to kind of recalibrate, how they want to go about doing that?
At first, I'm going to dive a little deeper. I'm going to be like, why? Like, why do we have to lose 50 pounds in a month? Why? And then also just kind of showing them the reality of how fast your body can actually lose fat and educating them on the fact, if we're losing something that's too quickly, we're going to risk losing muscle as well. And then also the sustainability aspect, like, okay, cool, we lost 50 pounds, most of it was water. And then the next month you're 70 pounds heavier. Like, we want to avoid that.
Yes. Yep. Understand why and help them to find realistic goals. Okay. Fourth question. Many people, they kick the can. In other words, they procrastinate on doing the work. And we just spoke about sometimes you just got to do the work. What would be your words of encouragement for those people that, always say, oh, I'll do it after the holiday. I'll do it after vacation. It's always after, besides actually just diving into it.
Like, why wait? What are we waiting for? There's never going to be the right time to make a change. And if you're really that unhappy, if it's really that important to you, you're going to start. So kind of find that balance. Like, is that something you really want to do? And if so, like, if you really want to do it, like, let's start now. Oh, it's Thursday. That's fine. Let's start Thursday. Like, there's no excuse. Why wait any longer to get to where you want to be?
Yep. Great answer. Okay. Last question. What would be one word on how you feel about your health and what you want others to feel? Okay. Let me rephrase that. You know how you feel about your health, right? You know how you feel every day. And so something about that you want to give to someone else. You know what I mean? That feeling, So if you can narrow down to one word, what would you want others to feel that you feel from being healthy and making healthy choices?
This is a good question. Man, I don't know one word. What's your one word? I need some context.
I'll give you my word. My word is it's the same word. It's freedom. It's liberation. Because you're free from feeling like you have to live off a scale. You're free from feeling like you have to live off these rules. You feel free from like certain foods that you feel you just had to feel like you had to have in your life. Like it's a freedom to not feel so attached. So for me, the idea of freedom is on the other side of the health or those goals. And that's to me is just basically like the clouds opening up and just that influx of just breath and free air. So freedom to me is my word.
I love that. That was really good. Okay, I think I have two words that came to my mind. I thought of grace, which kind of came with your freedom thing, but just also knowing, like, again, you're never going to be perfect, giving yourself that grace to just try new things, to fail, to get back up and try again. And then my other word was fun, because I'm all about just trying new things, trying like new vegetables, new fruits. You've never had this before. Why not? Like, let's get it. Let's figure out how to cook it, and just like making it fun, because that kind of makes it more sustainable and it doesn't feel like a diet or something you're forced to do. It's something that you enjoy. Like, oh, I got like a new food this week. I'm going to try to incorporate it into my meal prep. Okay, cool. That's exciting. So those are my words.
Yeah, grace and fun. And I love those because they're all pleasantries, like who doesn't want to have fun? Who doesn't want to know what it feels like to just have grace for themselves. Like it's forgiving and
Yeah.
we're having fun doing it. So I love those words. Yeah. You know what, Leila? I'm glad that we had this conversation because these are well-needed conversations, especially, beginning of the year, people are trying to make this whole year effort of making change, but they feel overwhelmed when they try to do it. So just like you said, having some grace, taking your time, understanding why you want to do this. And if you really want to do it, just do it. So I appreciate those words.
Yes.
So as we're closing up, I want to give you an opportunity to, tell us, how can we get in contact you? How can we learn about you? Where can we follow you? Kind of what's going on in your world?
Yeah, absolutely. What's best for me is just to follow me on Instagram. I'm constantly posting like client success, my own success and progress, a lot of workout videos, recipes. So my Instagram is HD_Leila, which is Leila. So that's best, and you can always contact me there. And yeah, I think that's it.
Yeah, and you can also find her on Tandem Nutrition on their website. Information about her and how to
Yes.
contact her through there. Yeah. Well, Leila, I again appreciate you taking the time. I wish we could switch places. I mean, you're in Florida right now. I'm in St. Louis. It's like 30 degrees. So if you want to switch, just let me know.
I feel bad. I was complaining it was only 60 today.
Yeah, but that's okay. That's okay. But no, I appreciate you coming on today, and everyone. Find her on Instagram and look her up on Tandem Nutrition. She probably really help you in some of your next steps, especially when it comes to weight loss and more so changing the mindset. Especially have any harm. As you're aging, women, we have dietitians out there that specialize in that. So take advantage of that well-needed, those professionals that can really help tackle some of these issues that you find yourself in these times. Again, this is the Dietitian Against Diets. And remember, as always, it's never about the diet. It's about the diet mentality. My word today was freedom. Like the diet mentality is the opposite of freedom. It's you're in a cage, you're in a time frame, you hate being in it, you can't wait till you get out of it. So let's keep having this conversation, learn how you can convert your nutritional and healthy eating from feeling less of a freedom to more of a freedom with the Dietitian Against Diet. So share it, share the glove, find Leila, find her, chat with her on Instagram, chat with her, and kind of see how she can help you in your life. So Leila, again, appreciate you being on the show today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, you're welcome. So again, guys, see you guys next week. Enjoy yourself. Have a great time loving yourself. And like Leila say, grace and fun at the same time. It can happen. See you guys next time. So I hope you enjoyed today's informative and inspirational episode. Every week, I look forward to sharing my platform with those people who has valuable information that we all can use in our lives. Thanks to our partners at Midwest Dairy Farmers who were able to provide these opportunities for these conversations to happen. And speaking of partners, they have been doing a lot of work behind the scenes. So in light of growing community wealth, Midwest Dairy Farmers, they continue to ensure that these dairy products are at the forefront of serving those in need in the growing numbers of people who face food insecurity, especially in light of the pandemic. To see their work in their community partners, they have worked with organizations such as the local food banks and a unique organization called Gen Youth that's specifically centered around kids in school nutrition lunches. They also work with respected influencers to ensure these nutritious resources gets to those in need. Go to the website at www.usdairy.com to learn more about their efforts and their mission behind the scenes. So guys, thanks for being a part of the show. Be sure to share this so we can continue to spread this valuable knowledge to those who are in need. We all have our own struggles when it comes to nutrition and our health and our body image and just overall wellness. So the more we spread, the more we share this message, the more positive energy that we put out to others. So thank you again, guys, and I'll see you next week.